Welcome to another episode of Insights from the Trenches, a series dedicated to helping ADHD couples thrive by empowering couples with insights from ADHD experts and ADHD peers. I'm Alice, your host. In this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Ari Tuckman. Ari is a psychologist, internationally recognized ADHD expert, and author of several books on ADHD, including his most recent, The ADHD Productivity Manual. Today, we'll be diving into a topic that hits many ADHD couples, getting past resentment and anger. So grab a cup of coffee and let's thrive together. Hi, Ari. Nice to see you today.
You as well.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on to this interview series. And just in case people don't know about you, I think everybody does, but just in case, can you share a little bit about, who you are and your ADHD journey?
Sure. So I'm a psychologist. I've written 5 books on adult ADHD. I do a lot of presenting on adult ADHD. And when I started out 25 years ago, nobody knew about adult ADHD, right? So my thing was trying to get people to pay attention to ADHD in adults, whether that was other clinicians who were sort of ignoring it or people in the community to know, like, yeah, this is a thing. Oh, your kid has ADHD? Great. Let's flip a coin to see which of you has ADHD. Then about 10 years ago or something, I got interested in not just ADHD in adults, but also how it impacts a couple in their relationship and their sex life and just all those parts of life. So from that, my book, ADHD After Dark, I wrote, and I still see a bunch of couples. I still think couples therapy is really interesting, kind of rewarding work, and love what I do.
That's great. Well, let's focus on specifically around couples, because the topic today is really getting past resentment and anger in ADHD couples, which is a topic voted by my readers. They all want to hear about what you have to say. But let's put something into context. For couples that are impacted by ADHD, you know that resentment and anger can quietly build up over time. Yeah. From your experience, what are the most common ways this shows up in a marriage or in long-term relationships?
So resentment and anger they're happiness killers. That whether it's ADHD or whatever, like they will absolutely sort of eat away at the relationship from the inside. So usually when there's resentment, it's because something so far hasn't been resolved. And resolved could mean many different things, but somehow we have not yet figured out a way to address this thing that's going on. So, when it's a couple where one person has ADHD, then, the common topics are things like division of labor and how are things done and when are things done and who's doing it and who gets to decide the way that we do this thing. And certainly ADHD, especially if it's not being well managed, is going to have a big impact on that. But also any two people who live together will already have differences. And, the ADHD part just sort of exacerbates those existing differences.
So why do you think resentment feels so sticky in a relationship compared to like other relationship dynamics?
Well, it's because it's a sort of process of elimination. So the places where a couple can resolve things, right? Either one person doesn't really care that much about it, so it's kind of a non-issue, right? Those are off the table. The things where they're able to talk about it and come to some sort of agreement because it's not that kind of activating or, difficult for either person, right? Those topics are off the table. So by process of elimination, what we're left with when it comes to resentment is all the stuff that we haven't yet been able to figure out. So those are the hardest issues, the ones that one or both people is sort of stuck in something, they're stuck in a position or they're unable to see what's going on and really kind of what their contribution is to it. And they keep looking to the other person to be the one to do something different, which then means nobody's going to do anything different. If they're both standing and waiting for the other one or trying to convince the other one why they should do something different, then you're just stuck in a detente at that point.
Yeah, that is really true from that perspective of not seeing past why someone's behaving certain ways. That makes a lot of sense. So when you work with couples, how do you help them tell the difference between what is truly ADHD related and what's about the patterns of communications of fairness in a relationship?
Yeah. Well, so I think, first of all, these things overlap. There are blurry lines between them. But I mean, the thing about it is, I kind of feel like this is sort of a both ways kind of a thing. So on the one hand, if we know that someone has ADHD, then probably some methods and strategies and systems are probably going to work better than others. Yes, that part is true. Just like any other way that someone might be, right? It's sort of like your particular way, is going to work certain ways, or certain things are going to work better for you just based on who you are. But also at the same time, ADHD or not, we still all, as functioning adults in the world, have some responsibility to manage the things that we need to manage, right? In that, of course, when a couple, we're a team and we're working together, and hopefully we're both kind of bringing our best to what needs to be done. But it can't just be a thing that whoever's better at something is the one who does it, because that creates imbalance and unfairness, and that leads to resentment, right? That's just like, unfairness is never a sustainable situation, or perceived unfairness, right? So at that point, there needs to be some sort of discussion addressing this to find something that feels more fair to both people. Now, that doesn't mean a 50-50 on this, as in I wash half the dishes and you wash the other half, but somehow in the grand scale of our relationship, there is some sort of a rebalancing that takes place.
So you brought up something very interesting, and it's good that I also brought up the fairness piece, because you're so right about fairness. A lot of people think that in a relationship, it's a 50-50 division, because that's what they thought it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it's not. So how do you help couples find that balance where in reality, it's not 50-50. It might be 60-40 or 70-30.
Mm-hmm. So some of this is that as much as people hope for sort of good outcomes, they often will settle for good intentions. So in other words, if I feel like you're working hard at it, I might be more willing to be okay with the fact that I seem to be doing more of this than you are, right? So some of that is work hard and also make sure your partner sees and knows that you're working hard. But I think where it begins to get kind of muddier is we all have things that we do or want that are important to us, but may not be equally important to our partner. Certain things that one person does, they're going to count up on their side of the ledger. Well, I'm the one who does all of this. And the other person's like, yeah, because I don't care about that. Like, I'm glad you do it for yourself, right? That's good. You're taking care of your happiness, but that's not my responsibility. Like if I lived alone, I wouldn't do that thing. Now, of course, a wise partner would say, I don't care about it, but I know you do. And I'm going to do this thing because that is good. Like, I don't care about making the bed, but it's good for you. So here I am doing this thing as a favor. Fine. But there are definitely certain things where it's like, yeah, this isn't really an optional. Like somebody has to take out the trash. Like at some point, the trash has to leave the building and someone has to pay the mortgage or the rent, and somebody has to like get food that we could actually eat. So there's definitely certain things that are not really negotiable in the sense of like, if you lived alone, these would have to happen also. And that's the stuff where I think there needs to be more of a sense of fairness And there needs to be, in general, a sense that both partners' desires are being met and then it doesn't feel like it's too much. One person is working harder and the other person is getting more of the benefit.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about some of the early warning signs that resentment is taking hold of a couple. What are those early warning signs that you see?
So it could show up that like snarky voice in your head where you're like, yeah, of course you didn't do that or whatever, right? That like it's in your head and you know that there's this dark lens that you view your partner and their actions through. That even if they did something good, you're like, yeah, but you didn't, whatever. So that would be one sign. I think another sign is if there's an edge to your interactions that you're bringing, or it seems like your partner is bringing an edge that doesn't seem related to what's going on. So that suggests like this is coming from somewhere else, something else is happening. I may not know what it is, but I know there's something here that's not the way I would like it to be.
Yeah. Or sometimes would it be like being passive aggressive in the way that you
Yes.
respond to someone?
Yep,
Great.
absolutely. Right. That it's the issue with passive aggressive behavior is it's leaking out in these other places. So something like I would put the milk back, but I know it pisses you off. So like I'm not, or I'm at the store picking up whatever. And like, I could go and get you that thing you like, but like, screw you, I'm not doing it. It's that like little stick in it. And of course, let's all be 1,000,000% honest here. If you think your partner doesn't notice the fact that you're sticking it to them, then you're lying to yourself because they almost certainly do.
That is so true. So besides those two warning signs, are there any other ones that couples should watch out for?
I think that those are probably the big ones in terms of resentment and in terms of like one's own resentment, but also picking up like what seems like your partner's resentment, certainly that, or if you just continue to have these same arguments that just don't go anywhere, that it just feels like, here we go again, we're stuck. We feel worse after the discussion, not better, right? Not only did we not make any progress on the original thing, whatever that is, also we both said some not helpful things. We both feel more angry, more hurt, more distant because of not just the original topic, but the behavior during the discussion of the topic, which is sometimes the worst part of it,
That is so true. So I'm glad that you list these out because I think it's important for people to understand what those warning signs are. How do you help couples understand that when those early warning signs show up, they should catch it, and what should they do when they notice it?
I think the first thing they should do is like pause for a moment and just sort of like notice like, okay, wait a second, what's going on here? Like what is the situation? What's going on with me? What's my sense of what's going on with my partner? So first you try to sort of pause and assess. And then maybe in the moment, it's possible the moment may not be the best time. So maybe it's later, either because there's an audience there, your kids or a friend or someone, obviously you're not going to have this conversation then, or alternatively, it's just the moment's too hot or some other reason. But, hopefully within a day or two, just having that conversation, bringing it up, and don't bring it up as, when we were talking about this, you were really crappy to me, right? Because guaranteed you're going to get a defensive response, but rather bringing it up like as an observation, like, you know what, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I noticed, when this thing was happening, blah, 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 right? And you try to describe it in as neutral a way as possible with as little editorializing, right? So, for example, if it was like the thing about the trash can, rather than saying, and you got really mad, like you always do, right? You're just adding fuel to the fire, as opposed to like, it seemed like you got pretty mad, right? That's a more neutral description. Now they may say like I wasn't actually that mad, and you're like, okay, but what to just sort of describe, like set the scene, like here's what I noticed, like what's happening there, like what is going on, or maybe we all know really well what's going on, and instead it's like I don't like that we keep having this same fight, like we got to figure something out, like something better. Like we got to be able to get beyond this, because like, I don't know, it kind of sucked for an hour or two that night. Like I didn't want to hang out with you because you just pissed me off. So like, can we do something about this?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing that example. Because what I've also noticed is really, like you said, it's the tone and the way that you structure your response can really rile up the other person. So if you could
Yeah.
really take a step back using the more observational tone, it actually helps calm the conversation down versus
Hmm.
someone getting super upset and start responding and attacking. So,
Yeah.
and that, like I said, I don't want to lose 1 or 2 hours,
Yeah.
having a bad conversation.
And that's the thing, right? It's like it's sort of calling to our mutual interests, in the sense of, I want us to be able to, I don't know, not have to get into a thing about this, or I would like us to be able to have a conversation where we can figure out what we're doing with this and then like move on feeling good. Because it's unlikely your partner's gonna be like, no, I don't want that. But if you say, as usual, you're not doing stuff around here, then like now you've got to fight.
That is so true. I think a lot of times when I speak with couples, when they're in that state of resentment and anger, like you said, they forget that they
Mm,
are actually on the same team.
yes.
And they're really looking at that person as an enemy versus being on the same team, because when you're on the same team, you need to collaborate, you need to come up with solutions so that you can move forward, which is like a really hard thing for people that are in anger to do. What some strategies that you recommend when they're really upset and they're really resenting their partner? What can they
Yeah.
do to help themselves kind of step back down?
I mean, part of it is, like you said, to remind yourself, like, we are actually on the same team here. And in many ways, I think we want some of the same things. Maybe things like how often the trash gets taken out, maybe that you don't want the same thing, but like, we want to be happy with each other and not in a tug of war. That you can definitely both agree on. So let's say your partner did something that pissed you off. So let's say they didn't take out the trash like they said they would. It would be easy to go at them, right? And to say, I have to do everything. I have to remind you, you said you would do it. As usual, you let me go, let me down, right? Like that's a lot of talking about the other person. And they're going to defend themselves, right? They're going to sort of minimize it. They're going to say, like, well, it's not a big deal. I took it out last week, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't that full anyway? Why are you freaking out? Which is all a giant waste of time, right? Because you guys will never come to a better place in that discussion. The better way of approaching it would be, it's sort of speaking about yourself, but in a good way, not in an egotistical way, but speaking about like, so we talked about the trash. You said you would take it out. And it bothers me that I feel like I don't know if I can trust you, that we have these discussions. I want to trust you. And then I feel like I get let down. And then I feel like I'm kind of an idiot for trusting you. And I'm mad at you and I'm mad at myself. Or so maybe that, right? It's like, this is how I am feeling as a result of this. Or I see the trash can is full and I feel like I've already done so many things. Like I don't want to have to deal with this. Like I feel like I have too many things. And when I feel like I'm doing more than you are, I start to feel resentful. And like I do not want to be resentful. I want to be happy to be with you. I want us to enjoy the rest of the night. I don't want there to be tension when we're sitting down to dinner with the kids. Like, so that is a much, if you say it nicely and you're saying it's more like, I am talking about this is what this experience is like for me, much more likely that your partner is going to be able to hear it. And they may be able to empathize a little bit more, and they might then be a little bit more willing to say, you know what? Yeah, I know I said I would do it. I don't know what happened. Like, let me see what I can do.
That makes sense. So let's do a little pivot. Talk about your new book, The ADHD Productivity Manual. It's been out a few months. Why did you decide to write this book at this stage?
Yeah. I mean, partly the reason why I decided to write it at this stage is that I've been doing this for 25 years. I've done something like more than 40,000 client hours over that time. And it kind of took all that to be able to write this book, because as much as there are these like top 10 lists and these top 5 hacks to supercharge your productivity or whatever, the reality is productivity is really complicated. There's many, many, many things that affect your ability to be productive, including just simple things like, I don't know, how did you sleep last night? So to help someone be more effective requires kind of looking at like, okay, what exactly is getting in your way? Because it could be a whole bunch of different things. And, in the book, I mean, there's 36 chapters. So I cover 36 different areas. And my goal is to help readers really get this kind of long list of places to be looking. If I'm stuck, if I'm not getting something done, what might be getting in the way? So I just kind of go through all these different areas and then obviously offer a bunch of strategies and solutions for how to address each of these areas so that they can be a little bit more effective, a little bit more, and kind of tip over to there I am getting it done.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really love that you explain in the book is called temporal discounting. Could you
Yes,
share a little bit about what that means and why is it
sure.
important to understand?
So first of all, we all do this. So temporal basically means time, and discounting means we don't feel it as much. So if I said, here's $100 right now, it's going to feel like a bigger deal than if I said, I'm going to give you $100, but it's not going to be for a year. It's the same $100, like it's the same, but it doesn't feel the same. This is why people do all sorts of things that are better in the moment, but don't benefit us later. So when you stay up to watch one more episode at night, it's fun, right? It's fun in the moment. It's better at 10 p.m. The problem is it's worse at 10 a.m. So, or classic examples why we don't save for retirement, why people smoke, why we eat French fries, or even like impulsively say some snarky thing to our spouse and then afterwards it ruins the whole night and we're like, god damn it, but in the moment it seemed like the right thing to do. So all people do temporal discounting, but folks with ADHD do it much more. So not feeling the pressure of the deadline until it comes a whole lot closer. And this is one of those, this absolutely plays out in the couple relationship. So if you're having company over this weekend and there's a bunch of stuff to do, non-ADHD partner feels it much sooner, because like Monday, Tuesday, they're thinking, God, I don't want to be running around crazy on Saturday. Like that is awful. I hate that. I would love the idea of like having an easy shower and being ready an hour before company shows up. So like, here I am Monday, Tuesday, let me do a few things. Person with ADHD isn't on Monday. They're not really thinking about Saturday. They're not feeling it. So they're like, oh, honey, we got plenty of time. It'll be fine. Until all of a sudden Saturday is here and now they're feeling it. So that difference in when you feel the future, the looming future, is a big driver of strife. Well, I will say of disagreement, which often leads to strife in relationships with one ADHD partner.
So I know that this is the ADHD Productivity Manual written for the ADHDer.
Mm-hmm.
Would a non-ADHD partner benefit from reading your book, and how they should leverage it if
Mm-hmm.
It could benefit.
Well, I think we can all safely conclude many more non-ADHD partners will read it than, yeah. So, although I will say it's written in a very ADHD friendly way, short chapters. I had some really awesome illustrations done by my friend Marcy Caldwell. So like, and it's funny and like whatever. So there's a lot of hopefully enough there to kind of keep an ADHD attention engaged. But on the one hand, I would like to think a lot of this is kind of good for all people. So you may find it helpful. But if you're the non-ADHD partner, you may see some stuff where you're like, oh, that could be good for my partner. So my advice is don't approach them like a parent or a teacher or a boss. Here, you have to do this, but rather, I saw this thing. I thought it was interesting. I thought maybe this is something that you would find helpful, right? So I'm asking you, can you take a look at it? Now, I think it's a fair request to say, I'm asking you to take a look at it. I think it's fair to say, I'm asking you to have an open mind about it. I think that too. It's not fair to say you have to do it. It's also not fair to be a jerk when someone asks you to do something, or to be just dismissive of like, fine, I'm going to look at it. But by the way, I'm looking for every reason to not do it, right? Like that's not fair either. So I think at least we owe our partner to have an open mind to what they suggest or ask of us. And if you disagree, you're like, I don't know, this isn't for me. Like, that's fine. You can say that, but it has to be clear that you at least gave your partner a shot.
Great. Thank you so much, Ari. Last question. If someone wants to work with you, how should they contact you?
So my books and podcast website is, or books and presenting website is adultadhdbook.com. My practice website is tuckmanpsych.com, and I've got contact forms on both. I do have a wait list, unfortunately. So, you know, it can take a little bit to get in with me, but, you know, if somebody's willing to wait, and if they're in a state I'm allowed to see people by video, then I'm very happy to put them on my list. And when I get to you, then away we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ari. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, happy to do it. I love talking about this stuff.
Thank you for listening. Want more from this interview? Get the extended interview plus subscriber-only resources. Join now at www.lifewithanadhdspouse.com/subscribe.